So, Space Marine 2. The fact that this game exists at all is a miracle. Never mind the fact that it's sold well enough that we've already got a sequel in the works already. Not gonna lie, absolutely ballsy move for announcing that extremely early. From a relatively decent yet often forgotten game, to the literal best-selling Warhammer 40k title of all time, we spent over a decade waiting for this game. In the meantime, we've had to endure the tragedy of Old Night, with many subpar 40k game releases, enduring the mess that was Dawn of War 3. Which I might talk about in a later video. But from the closer of THQ, or more specifically, the team that made the original game, to the rise of this brand new and improved Primaris Space Marine experience, how do we get to this point? How do we get from 100% certified mid third-person video game junk food to absolute cinematic excellence? Well, sit back in your Relaxium 3000 relax chair, grab a cup of recaf, and let me walk you through the complete miracle of this game and why Space Marine 2 shouldn't exist. Your bones might not want to believe this, but Warhammer 40k Space Marine 1 released in September 9th, 2011, 14 years ago, to mostly positive reviews, running on the wings of titles like Gears of War, and releasing a drove of other third-person action games. Space Marine was carried on the merit of its franchise with more than 25 years of brand recognition. It delivered the promise of feeling like a freight train with a chainsword, hacking and slashing through hordes of enemies with colossal amounts of grim dark gore. Mother goddamn, I got a chainsaw. Yeah, chainsword. Nothing remotely exceptional at the time, but many loved it for finally bringing the feeling of playing as a Space Marine to life. I also liked it a lot.
Rex Astartes leaves no room for doubt. You cannot touch the warp and emerge unscathed.
Fuck Leandros. All my homies hate Leandros. It's not a perfect game. Hell, it's not even the top 20 games I've ever played. It was, however, always a game I remembered fondly, especially when I replayed it last year. It was one of the very few decent Warhammer 40k games, in terms of action games, but absolutely mid in the era of Gears of War third-person games. Space Marine 1 was a glimmer of hope, a delectable treat, and the otherwise complete and utter biomass soup that was Warhammer 40k games at the time. Many would lament about how there's so much promise within it, still to be realized or capitalized on, never to be revisited, figuratively and literally used as a preamp to monitor stand, and to be forgotten. And I have never been happier to be proven wrong. Literally out of nowhere, Space Marine 2. Where did this come from? Games like Space Marine 1 don't get sequels, they just don't. Where did this come from? And to channel my inner tech priest here, all logic dictates that the data supports this. It sold well, certainly a bright spot in THQ's catalog at the time, but not crazy numbers. With only 1.2 million sales in the first 2 months of its launch, it reviewed decently, but not exceptionally, with most citing regular pacing issues. And the team that made it, a subsidiary of THQ, who made several Warhammer 40k games in the past, closed its doors several years ago. It is not financially savvy to kickstart a series again after such a long time between releases, especially with a game that is 2 console generations old. Apart from being absolutely blindsided by the trailer on that day alongside everyone else, if we were expecting anything, a reboot or a remaster would have been higher on the list of expectations. But a sequel? The series should have been lost to the annals of time, sequestered to the $5 box in your local dingy discount gamer store, consigned to the pile of forgotten mid-tier or downright terrible Warhammer games, with the likes of Fire Warrior. Yet despite all odds, Space Marine 2 has been what can only be described as a turbo banger of a video game, topping Steam charts, becoming the best-selling Warhammer 40k game of all time, even beating out the beloved Dawn of War from Relic Entertainment. This game has made Warhammer 40k an even more household name, more than anything that has come before it. How can this tarnished phoenix rise from the ashes and return us to the gory, Glory days of 2008, when Gears reigned as the king of third-person action games. What kind of goddamn deal did someone make with the Chaos Gods to make this game come into existence? Logically, it makes zero sense, but neither does Siege until you look into the well of eternity long enough. To put it as bluntly as possible, GW has had a very good several years. Profits in hobbying exploded over pandemic time, with more people getting into 40K now more than ever. And what promotion is better than free promotion that goes viral online? So yeah, we are talking about those damn videos. Because if Bricky won't give himself any credit, then I will. It would be a complete understatement to say that streamers don't play a huge part in promoting games these days. For better or for worse, streamers are a huge part of any successful game's marketing campaign, and his silly, sometimes highly inaccurate videos served as the perfect primer for almost every single VTuber, streamer, React Roach, and their audiences to be introduced to Warhammer 40K in some capacity before the game got launched. If I was not a longtime viewer of his, I would have considered this to be some sort of Games Workshop psyop stunt, akin to how gene stealer cults infect the masses of a planet before the Tyranid hive ships arrive, priming all these creators to check out Warhammer before experiencing Space Marine 2 in all its visceral glory, exposing thousands upon thousands of more people to the franchise for what might be the first time, and priming those people for the purchase of Space Marine 2. I'm honestly surprised he didn't get a check in the mail from GW for all that ridiculous free marketing. 40K has finally entered the public eye, with an entire new generation of people having been introduced to 40K, and potentially the main hobby. I guarantee you at least several thousand viewers of each of these videos went out and bought themselves a nice little box of plastic crack, most of them sitting unpainted and beginning their own pile of shame. And yes, this is still relevant, I promise you. Plastic crack is the lifeblood of the hobby. GW is recording record profits year after year after year, and with almost more money than sense, that can lead to very bold and risky decisions. And GW weren't sitting on their asses about it, they pulled that trigger almost immediately. They've injected almost every single asset of their business with an adrenaline shot of cold hard cash. They've greenlit animated shorts, hiring some of the best and brightest. They've closed the deal with Henry Cavill and Amazon for making Amazon TV shows and movies. The secret level was actually the best out of all of them too. And yes, we will see the Horus Heresy in its 50 parts on the Silver Screen. It's going to happen. They've launched their own subscription service for dedicated Warhammer media, even more books, even more audiobooks, merchandising, better models, and finally, video games. While little boxes of plastic crack may have people skeptical at first, it's far more easier to jump into the world of 40K through something like a video game. I am living proof of that. The opening cutscene of Dawn of War still lives rent-free in my head from when I was 7 years old. In all likelihood, the trailer for Space Marine 2 is doing the exact same thing for the next generation of tabletop wargamers. But when you're flush and flash with cold hard cash and planning on being the next Marvel Studios, you do have to be at least a little bit diligent with your homework. We don't need another Dawn of War 3 or Fire Warrior for God's sakes. And with the original studio disbanded, just who on earth could make a bigger and better successor to the long dead Space Marine game? But to get into that, we gotta talk about some walking corpses.
Zombies.
Crombie. Zombies. Simbi. Zombies. Zambambo.
The zombie frenzy media craze of the mid-2000s led to some absolutely ridiculous innovation in video games. There are many games like Dead Rising and COD Zombies during this time frame, but none with a staying impact than Left 4 Dead, with these bangers still influencing the games industry almost 2 decades later, and especially this one particular developer. Of course, I am talking about Saber Interactive and their game World War Z, the proverbial final nail in the zombie frenzy coffin, which was a lot better than initial reviews suggested, I'm gonna be honest. It's a fun zombie survival game with lots of spectacle, but of course, heavily praised, particularly for its zombie swarm mechanics, its purpose-built engine being able to handle over 100 enemies on the screen at any given time. I mean, this portrayal of a hive-minded, single-minded, primal urge just to consume, so clearly conveyed through game mechanics of a horde of enemies on screen, I'm sure GW took one look at this and went, man. Imagine if this was a swarm of Nurglings or Tyranids. It does certainly help that Saber Interactive were also chomping at the bit to get the chance to work on Space Marine as well.
The truth is that we've been kind of circling like sharks around Games Workshop for a long time, trying to get hold of this game.
We believe at Saber that we have the story, the gunplay, the technology, the experience, and the passion to deliver what fans want. So I'm scared, but I'm excited. Our team is, they love working on this game. It's one of their favorite games that they've ever worked on.
You can tell every time Saber were talking about this game in interviews just how much they love and respect the franchise. The sheer amount of care, hard work, and polish they put into Space Marine is evident of that. However, even with this game having all the hallmarks of being a perfect fit, with even Orokin the Diviner literally aligning the stars to make this game exist, some saw the long delays as serious signs of issues during development. And for some developers, that would be correct. However, myself and all the other Galaxy Brain gamers were abiding by the old adage of let them cook. But even so, it's a lot of hot air if the game's poor quality or not fun to play. But is it any of those things? How fucking many? That's a lot of fucking bugs! Oh, he's so cool! He's so badass! Oh! Get him! I mean, look at this game! Everything looks amazing! Every time you turn a corner, you are sucked into the universe. The grim darkness of the far future has never been more evidently displayed on screen.
You will give your life in the name of our holy emperor! Sir, yes, sir!
Where some developers or companies get a license for a game and quickly churn out some mediocre trash before Christmas to maximize sales profits, Saber and GW actively delayed the game for over a year to make sure this game met expectations. I mean, just look at it! Long gone are the days of the mid-2000s, where GW licensed their game to mediocre developers, rushing out unfinished, unpolished games just to meet deadlines and financial quarter sales numbers. And long gone are the days where GW were just barely getting by. With the announcement of Space Marine 3 and its long development cycle, they're clearly shoveling even more money into the next installment to be bigger, better, and even more harrowing than this one. By some miracle, Space Marine 2 exists, and by all normal means, it shouldn't. Through the power of money, the stars aligning for all parties to be available at the right time to make it happen, the passion of Saber Interactive's team, the hype and attention Warhammer 40k has been receiving lately, being pushed into the eyes of normal people outside of our normal hobby groups for the first time, or even just one person, higher-ups of GW, begging for a Space Marine 2 to exist just for the sake of it existing. Any of all these factors could be the case, but money. Honestly, money in the capitalist venture machine is always the biggest thing, as always. This game was a monumental success, and it was the perfect storm of the proper finances at the right time, the right developers who were talented enough to make it happen, and the droves of streamers of all demographics enjoying this world for what might be the first time and sharing that with their audiences. It heralds a new age from Games Workshop's handling of their foremost flagship IP. Games Workshop today are the single frontrunner in tabletop gaming, and they're on the precipice of becoming a media giant, the next Marvel, if they play their cards right. And if they're going to keep releasing quality games like this, as well as animations and TV and film in the future, the grim darkness of the 41st millennium literally couldn't be brighter. For those of you who thought, wait, haven't I seen this video before from about a year ago? Chances are you're correct. A lot of this has been retooled from an old video when I was pursuing a Warhammer only channel, before I realized my ADD brain literally cannot focus on one single main project happening at any time, so the love of the franchise is being folded in on this channel. So expect me to talk extensively about Warhammer 40k and Warhammer on here just whenever it takes my fancy, which is a lot of the time, so stay tuned for that. And I mean literally. Up next is my seriously massive Space Marine 2 video. After that, who knows? Probably some new hyperfixation my monkey brain is latched onto. Remember to like, subscribe, and comment and all that jazz. We're trying to get partner on YouTube before the end of the year. And make sure to check out my Patreon if you want to show me some support. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you chimps in the next one.